وسهلا بكل الذين ينضموا للاستماع إلى راديو بلدي، أول راديو عربي أمريكي ويعنى بقضايا العرب في المهجر. برامجنا في راديو بلدي كل يوم جمعة من 8 وحتى 9 صباحا مع ليلى الحسيني في بث حي ومباشر عبر wnzk radio 690 AM. صباح الخير بلدي، صباح الخير لكل مستمعينا.
Welcome to Radio Baladi, the first Arab, Middle Eastern, and American simulcast radio show. Radio Baladi is broadcast every Friday morning on WNZK 690 AM from 8 until 9 Eastern Time on Good Morning Michigan with Layla Al-Husseini. Our call-in number 248-557-3300. And now, stay tuned for the best radio talk show on Arab and American issues with your host, Layla Al-Husseini.
I am Atef Abdel-Jawad. Join me the first Friday of each month at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. I will be discussing some of the most important issues and events in the Middle East live on America's Voice of the Arabs. WNZK 690 AM and wdmv 700 AM.
Good morning. This morning we'll have an extended conversation with a distinguished Virginia senator. We'll be discussing local Virginia issues, national issues, as well as international and Middle East issues. Please join me in welcoming Senator Richard Hayden Black. Senator Black represents the 13th District, which encompasses Loudoun and Prince William counties. He served in the Marine and fought in Vietnam. Good morning, Senator.
Good morning. It's nice to be with you.
Thank you. Let's start with the Voter Fraud Commission. As you know, President Trump set up that commission to investigate possible fraud in the election.
Yes.
Is Virginia cooperating?
No, it's not. Governor Terry McAuliffe has dug in his heels. Most states are cooperating. I think 20 now have provided the requested information. Another 16 are completing their legal review. Ultimately, even Virginia will provide it because the Voting Rights Act makes quite clear that states must provide this information. This was a provision put into the American Code back at a time when people were concerned about voting rights for Black Americans and African Americans, and so it still remains the law. And so I think what you'll see is those handful that finally hold out, I think they'll be taken to court, and very quickly. I don't think the courts will have any difficulty ordering them to provide the information.
Is there any evidence of any fraud, at least in Virginia?
Yes, there actually is a considerable amount. We just prosecuted an individual who admitted to 14 instances of voter fraud. Tom Garrett, who was recently elected to Congress, he was a fellow senator. He'd been a prosecutor, and he said that he had prosecuted half a dozen cases in his area, and we're finding that there seems to be a very, very lax system for screening out individuals who have died. One of the things that the Commission's trying to get hold of, and I'm sure they will, they want to get the Social Security list and match that against voter records where they can, because there is evidence that that there are dead people voting. It's a long joke in the United States, and the reason is that honestly, the U.S. Has a very long tradition of voter fraud that's been. I think most historians agree that the vote for President of the United States against between President Kennedy and President Nixon, the first time that Nixon ran, he lost to Kennedy because Mayor Daley of Chicago was called at the last minute. It was a close election, and he was told, "Hey, look, we've got to get votes out of Chicago," and he simply produced votes that were invalid, but it was enough to tip the balance. We've got a long history of this, and I think the fact that we've got a commission to audit the system and try to restore some confidence in the system, I think is a positive thing.
Senator, you talked about 14 instances or half a dozen instances that can easily be prosecuted, but the president is talking about 3 million voters.
Yes. Nobody knows the number because no one has ever checked on it. But it's interesting to note that the Washington Post conducted a poll last October, and they found that 80% of Republicans felt that there was a meaningful amount of voter fraud, 75% of independents, and even a majority of Democrats believe that there was a meaningful amount of voter fraud. It's important to remember whatever the numbers, and it could be in the millions, but we just don't know. But many elections are decided by a handful of votes. There's a woman who, a very, very nice woman. She's a Democrat and a friend of mine, and she won the election for mayor of Leesburg some years ago. It's probably been 6 or 8 years ago, and she won the election by 5 votes. So you don't need a tremendous amount of voter fraud in order to have a very profound impact on elections. So I'm personally glad that they're going to review it. It'll help to restore some confidence in the system, and at the same time, I think we know for a fact that there are people who are voting while dead. We know that there have been instances where people have been found to be voting repeatedly long after they have died, and someone's obviously just going in and pulling up their names. They're still on the voters list, never purged, and so they're voted year after year.
Well, voting while somebody is dead is an indication that the person is alive, but I'm just joking. Senator, in your long history, in your own long history as an elected politician, have you ever complained or observed any fraud?
Yes, right here in Loudoun County. I live in Loudoun County, Virginia. We have just been working through our voters' rolls, and we have come up with 41 individuals who, from everything that we can determine, have been voting illegally. And so we have it now. There are 98 counties in Virginia. This is just one, and we don't have access to a lot of information, but the information that we do have, we've worked with the clerk of court, we've worked with the Board of Elections, and and determined that there are at least 41 who have been voting illicitly right in our area.
Mr. Trump is president now, and he is legally and lawfully the president of the U.S. So what does he really want now that he is president? Some people say, I mean, I know you said that there is a need to fix the system, but do you think that the president also may be seeking to prove that he may have also won the election, the popular vote?
You know, I don't know. I've heard that said, but frankly, once you have won, it becomes pretty irrelevant. It's kind of amazing. You'll see people who just squeak by the tiniest of margins. Once they're elected, nobody even remembers what the margin was. So it might be an issue for him, but I don't think it's an issue for the public. I think once you're elected president, that's it. It really doesn't matter. Richard Nixon was reelected in one of the greatest landslides in history. He actually won 49 states. And I don't think anybody was all that aware of it. Once the election was over, he just was the president, and the other stuff becomes ancient history. So if it does concern him, I think he'd be well advised to just move on, because it really doesn't matter. People don't think about that very much.
Senator Black, before we move on to other issues, I want to ask you if you are happy or satisfied so far with the president's performance.
Well, it's sort of a mix. I'm very pleased with most of his domestic policies. I am disappointed by the foreign policies. There were several things that he spoke about during the election that I believe were very good. And one is he expressed the view that our long-standing desire to topple the government of Syria would come to an end. It hasn't. The other is that he felt that there was no reason why we should not have better relations with Russia and not be nearly so provocative, and I agreed with that. The other thing is that with NATO, he was skeptical of NATO and felt that it had outlived its usefulness. I was a part of NATO, and NATO was an extraordinarily fine alliance back when we faced the Soviet Union. But when the Soviet Union dissolved, their military alliance, the Warsaw Pact, also dissolved. And the NATO, unfortunately, there should have been a big parade and everybody celebrate and say, okay, now it's time to go home. But instead, NATO continued, and I think over the years it has morphed into an extremely aggressive and rather dangerous organization. And I think this is because there was a huge bureaucracy. They had to have an enemy in order to have a justification to exist. And so they have become extraordinarily provocative along the Russian border. And I just don't think that benefits the American people in any way. I think if you go back to George Bush, and in fact, if you go back to Herbert Walker Bush, you look at the Gulf War, And then you go on to into the what we called Iraqi freedom. Then you go on to toppling Libya, trying to topple Syria, trying to topple Egypt. The other day, Senator Tom Cotton said it's time for regime change in Iran. Every time that we engage in regime change, millions of people die. Most of these are Muslims, and you know, we purge those countries of Christian communities that have been there for millennia, and no one wins. No, you know, Muslims lose, Christians, Druze, Yazidis, all of the people in the Middle East lose, and the irony is that the American people do not win. It's not as though we somehow get something by all of the slaughter that we tend to promote over there, and there are a handful of global oligarchs, very wealthy people who make money on the oil markets, drug markets, the weapons markets, and the people who simply want to live a good life in their countries, whether it's Iraq or Syria or just where it is, any of the countries over there, they're the ones who suffer, and their families are killed in useless wars. And I think it's almost a manifestation of a new colonialism taking place, where we say, look, we will sort of dictate to the Middle East what they will be and where their lines will be drawn. And I don't think that is the task of the United States. I don't think that's the type of country that we were established to become. And I just think we have caused enormous bloodshed, suffering, and destruction over there. And I would like to see us draw back from what we've been doing there.
Senator Black will be talking more about foreign policy in a second after the break.
Thank you very much.
When it comes to reproductive medicine, IVF Michigan fertility centers are the recognized leaders. With locations in Bloomfield Hills and 5 other cities in Michigan and Ohio, IVF has experts in all aspects of the field. As a founding member of IVF Michigan Fertility Centers, Dr. Nicholas Shama is one of the leading reproductive endocrinologists in Michigan and Ohio. Dr. Shama has performed over 10,000 IVF cases and has helped thousands of couples fulfill their dreams of parenthood. American board certified in both obstetrics and gynecology and reproductive endocrinology and infertility, Dr. Nicholas Shama is a very caring, compassionate, expert physician that understands not only the medical but also the emotional toil of infertility on his patients. When it's time, get personalized care from Dr. Nicholas Shama at IVF Michigan Fertility Centers in Michigan and Ohio. Call toll-free 855-952-9600, 855-952-9600.
It's never too early to get your child on the right track. From their first words to first grade, Dreamy Children's Center in Troy works closely with parents to provide an experience that goes beyond early education. The highly qualified and experienced staff use a variety of programs that can help nurture important personality traits like responsibility, independence, problem solving, motivation, and respect. They also have educational programs ranging from preschooling for infants, toddlers, transitional toddlers, and pre-K to Montessori-approved programs and bilingual curriculums for young children. They're open from 6 a.m. to 6:30 p.m., can provide breakfast, lunch, and dinner with snacks in between, and can also arrange for after-school pickup. Dreamy Children's Center in Troy is located at 37373 DeQuinder, just above 16 Mile Road, and can be found on Facebook at Dreamy Children's Center. Ask about the free preschool program. Call today, 248-680-9170, 248-680-9170.
When you're looking for the best in optical care, Dr. Imad Nakash is your doctor to see. With years of experience and thousands of successful procedures performed, you can trust your eyes to Dr. Imad Nakash. See Dr. Imad Nakash and his professional staff for your eye care needs. There's 2 locations to serve you. In Hazel Park, call 248-336-3937. 248-336-3937. In Rochester Hills, call 248-299-3937. That's 248-299-3937.
A car accident can change your life in an instant. As a result of a car accident, you may become unemployed. As a result of a car accident, you may need a lot of medical treatment. People think that insurance companies are on their side. Why? Because they're giving them 1 or 2 benefits. Are they giving them all the benefits they deserve? How would one know unless you consult with an attorney? Call the law offices of Jumana Kiruz at 248-557-3645. 248-557-3645.
The Rama Relief Foundation provides humanitarian aid into areas inside of war-torn Syria, as well as aid to the refugees who have fled to the neighboring countries in the Middle East. The foundation offers food baskets, container shipment, mental health, education, soup kitchens, and more. Go to ramarelief.org or call 248-990-4247. Any donation amount made to Rama will go to sustaining many lives. Call now 248-990-4247.
Dr. Abdel-Jawad. Join me the first Friday of each month at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. I will be discussing some of the most important issues and events in the Middle East live on America's Voice of the Arabs. WNZK 690 AM and wdmv 700 AM.
Welcome back to our discussion with distinguished Virginia Senator Richard Black on Radio Baladi. Senator, before we discuss some more foreign policy issues, I have a couple of questions about our state, Virginia. You are a member of several committees, including Agriculture and Education. Tell us briefly about your concerns and how you are dealing with those concerns.
Well, we have worked very hard to improve public education, and one of the things that we did, and it's been some years ago, but we instituted a program of the standards of learning where we had standardized tests. That has benefited us. We just recently, we've begun to feel that perhaps a little too much emphasis has been put on testing, and we need a little bit more flexibility for our teachers. So we are working our way through that, trying to slightly reduce the number of tests while still keeping in place the format that we had, where we sort of require a certain level of learning. At the same time, I'm a big supporter of school choice. I've always believed that parents have a much more intense interest in the education of their children than anyone else, and that is regardless of the level of education of the parents themselves. They all want the best for their children. So we're doing some work with charter schools. We're trying to make it a little bit easier for charter schools to function. Virginia has been very strong on homeschooling, and some of our finest students come out of homeschooling situations where they come together as a group periodically, and then much of the instruction takes place by the mothers and fathers at home. So we are working on those things. In the area of agriculture, we do agriculture and natural resources. I am a strong supporter of using all forms of energy that don't require subsidies, and I'm rather skeptical of the global warming thesis, and I think that the American economy has suffered a great deal because we do not make use, as we should, of the tremendous energy resources we have in this country. Now, one of the good news is that just in the past year, American coal production increased by 19%, and we have changed the law so that we can now export both oil and natural gas. And we have a natural gas liquefaction facility in Cove Point, Maryland, which is not too far from where I am. And then there are 6 major plants down in Louisiana, and the tremendous amount of natural gas produced by the United States, as it's liquefied and exported, it's going to actually help the American balance of payments substantially, because traditionally we have imported, and it's very interesting. We have these facilities where originally when they were built, they were designed to bring in shipments of liquid natural gas and then gradually warm them and expand them and put them out on the gas lines to provide gas across the United States. Now we have used those identical facilities, reversed the whole process to where now natural gas from across the various gas producing regions goes to those ports, and instead of being expanded, it's compressed and liquefied and put aboard ships, and now it's shipped over to other countries. And so this is a tremendous gain for us with liquid natural gas, and with the fracking that's taking place, we have just an explosion of American-produced oil. And every indication is that the United States will be the world's dominant producer of both oil and natural gas within a few years. The importance of this, it's important to look at it from an international perspective, because so much of warfare, particularly affecting the Middle East, has been the struggle over oil markets. And as we become less reliant on foreign oil, I think the United States will be in a posture to diminish its intervention in foreign nations, particularly in the Middle East. My heart breaks because I have, I've been to Qatar, I've been to Saudi Arabia, or not to Saudi Arabia, but I've been to Syria, I've been to Lebanon, and I have seen just some of the most beautiful people I have ever met in my life, and from every religion, Sunnis, Christians, the whole gamut. And there should not be war, and unfortunately the United States has been instrumental in promoting war. And there was a WikiLeaks document that was disclosed. It was a document produced by the U.S. Embassy in 2006, and it laid out a detailed plan for destabilizing Syria, one that we carried out. And one of the things that was rather haunting about it was that the document spoke about creating a sense of paranoia between the Shiite and the Sunni Muslims. And up until this time in Syria, there was this rather remarkable culture of religious harmony where people just simply got along together. The Muslim, the Christian, the Druze, all of the different factions. They just simply harmonized. They loved one another, and then it was this United States plan to create this tension and this hatred, and I think it is not one of the prouder moments in U.S. history. I think it'll go down in history as alongside the Trail of Tears with the Indians and slavery and things of that sort. And so I have worked very hard to try to bring peace in the Middle East and to end the suffering for everyone. I started off, my interest was in saving the lives of Christians, and then as I was over there and I moved among the Sunni Muslims, I thought, what a terrible tragedy that these people are dying because they're precious, wonderful, beautiful people. And so I really am quite anxious to see the United States begin to draw down its meddling in that area.
We'll talk more about that in a minute, Senator, but let me go back to Virginia. As you know, Virginia was the landing port for the slaves who came from Africa some 400 years ago. Now, are you happy with the progress made in terms of civil rights in Virginia?
Well, yes, I am. I mean, I would say this. I think, of course, the civil rights of minorities are zealously protected. I think there were mistakes made. When I was a boy, I grew up under segregation in Miami, Florida, and at one point I just decided, this seems so unfair, and I began to ride in the back of the bus. There was the way things were set up, you'd get on the bus and it would say colored to the rear, and the very last row of seats in the bus was where the blacks were required to sit. And I was a very shy young man at the time, but one day I said, I just don't believe in this. I don't accept it. And I made my way to the back of the bus, and there were a group of black workmen there. And I said, sir, may I have a seat? And they were not honestly quite anxious for me to sit back there. They didn't want any trouble, and but they did. They moved aside a little bit, and I sat down with them. And then from then on, I rode in the colored-only section of the bus. Now, I didn't do it because I hated anyone. It was simply because I wanted everyone to be treated equally. I didn't want anyone to feel that they had to be looked down upon as inferior.
And maybe you did that because your last name is Black. We'll be back in a second.
Life for Relief and Development is a nonprofit charity that has been providing humanitarian aid and development to people and communities regardless of race, color, religion, or cultural background for over 22 years. When disaster occurs here or around the world, Life rushes to provide food, medical aid, and shelter to those in need. Life also has development projects that provide medical relief, water purification, educational programs, relief for orphans, and much more. Your help and support can greatly improve these efforts. All donations are tax deductible. For more information, please visit our website at lifeusa.org or call 248-424-7493. That's lifeusa.org, 248-424-7493.
Are you going to start a restaurant or grocery store soon? Do you need floor plans and designs? Call Naji Abood at 734-744-9796. Do you want to buy kitchen and restaurant equipment at discount prices? Call Naji Abood now, 734-744-9796. New Concept Products and Design, the trademark of kitchen equipment. 5% discount on all purchases of $75,000 or more. New Concept Products and Design, new location, 31185 Schoolcraft in Livonia. Learn more at www.newconceptproducts.com. Call Naji Abood, 734-744-9796.
Ziyad brand. Quality products from our family to yours. Ziyad Brothers Importing offers the finest quality products, including brands like Sultan, Kraft, Nestle, Hook, Rico Picon, Dana, and many more. Ask your retailer to carry these fine products because you deserve the very best. For more information, visit our website at www.ziyad.com. That's www.ziyad.com. Ziyad, quality products from our family to yours.
Are you ready to go back to get that degree you've always wanted? Is there a young person in your life looking for the right college? Are you ready to transfer to a four-year institution? Well, take a look at today's Marygrove College, a tradition of academic excellence right here, right now in the city of Detroit. Classes start September 5th. There's still time to apply for fall and get scholarships. Don't pass up this opportunity. marygrove.edu. Ahlan bikum fi Marygrove College.
I am Atef Abdel Jawad. Join me the first Friday of each month at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. I will be discussing some of the most important issues and events in the Middle East live on America's Voice of the Arabs. WNZK 690 AM and WDMV 700 AM.
Welcome back to our discussion on radiobality. Our distinguished guest is Virginia Senator Richard Black. Senator, today is the first face-to-face meeting between Presidents Trump and Putin in Hamburg, Germany. Now, as you know, there is a lot of discussion here. There are investigations into possible, probable Russian meddling in the U.S. election. The President Trump says, we just don't know if Russia meddled in the election. 17 intelligence agencies say, yes, the Russians did. What's your take on this?
Well, I'm still waiting to see any evidence. I deal in facts, and I sometimes am a little bit skeptical of generalized government claims of, that this happened or that happened. I look for evidence, and so far, I see no evidence at all, and so I don't. My guess is that this whole thing will burn out at some point. Even General Flynn, who I think was potentially one of the real heroes of our government, he was ousted rather early on claims that he had spoken to the Russian ambassador after President Trump was nominated. Well, frankly, I think it would have been an act of incompetence if he had not gotten on the phone and started contacting the people he was going to work with as soon as he knew that President Trump was going to be the president and he would be the national security advisor. But I think the reason that he was actually ousted was that he was a man who was committed to peace. He did not want to see us involved in unnecessary wars in the Middle East. And I think that's the reason that he was ousted. I think.
But I understand, Senator, I understand that he was ousted because he was not exactly truthful with the Vice President Pence.
I know that was the line that was used, but if we ousted everyone who was not completely forthcoming with another government bureaucrat, I think our government would evaporate overnight. I think that was more of an excuse than anything else. I think what happened was that President Trump saw this big furor over Russia and thought, well, I'll just let this guy go and maybe that'll put an end to it. Well, it did not. It just sort of exacerbated it. And I think it was a great loss to people across the world when Michael Flynn was put out. And frankly, whether he told everything to the vice president, vice presidents vary in importance, and they are not always the key people in government. So that, to me, that was rather irrelevant. I think it was just an excuse to get him out. And the arms dealers saw that they were likely to lose contracts, and so I thought it was very unfortunate that he was put out of office.
But Senator, do you think it is appropriate for a U.S. president, any U.S. president, to talk negatively about U.S. intelligence agencies while overseas, as Mr. Trump did in Poland and probably in Germany? He said the U.S. intelligence agencies were wrong about Iraq in 2003.
Well, I think the fact is that they were wrong in 2003, and I recall a time when Secretary of State Colin Powell appeared before the United Nations and he held a test tube, and he, in this ridiculous gesture, he said, "This is what sarin gas would be like, and Iraq has sarin gas, and so we have to attack them." That speech cost 100,000 Iraqi citizens their lives. It was false. I think it was deliberately false intelligence generated by the CIA as a pretext to make war on Iraq, which had never threatened the United States in any way. And whatever your thoughts are on whether Iraq was good or bad, or whether the policies were good or bad, that was an issue for the Iraqi people. We have this unfortunate tendency to think that somehow we need to rule the world and to dominate individual countries, and the apex of this interventionism has moved to the Middle East, and the amount of suffering that it has caused is epic. It's just I've walked through cities that have been bombed out and blown out by artillery and mines and everything else, and you just think, my gosh, it's going to take generations to reconstruct this. And in the meantime, hundreds of thousands of people are dying. And it would not happen were it not for the United States funneling massive amounts of weapons. We're training various invasion forces in Jordan, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and Qatar. And we've now set up bases inside of Syria, which is an internationally recognized sovereign nation. So what we're doing is clearly in violation of international law. And I just, you know, I had some wonderful experiences in Syria. I spent time with the governor of Homs province, the largest province of Syria. He's a Sunni Muslim, and we were going down this one part of the street, a big highway in a major part of the city. It wasn't damaged and very thriving. And he said, "This is probably 99.9% Sunni Muslim here." And I said, "Well, pull over." I said, "I want to talk to people." So we stopped, and I had my own interpreter, and we went around, and I would find groups of men who were, you know, at a street corner smoking a cigarette or something, and just go up and, you know, and start talking with them. And they were wonderful people. They were just priceless. And we, you know, I felt quite safe, even though maybe I shouldn't have. But, you know, I don't know. People were friendly. They were nice. And
okay, but Senator, I want to ask you next about what you think, how the Syria crisis be resolved. But we'll do that after we come back from the break.
Yes, thank you.
أسواق زمزم الواقع على 24065 أورشد لك في مدينة فارمington هيلز ترحب بالجالية العربية والكلدانية. تنزيلات كبيرة على عموم المواد الغذائية في يوم الأربعاء من كل أسبوع. لا تنسوا فريش كاري اوت، جميع انواع المعجنات، وايضا صواني الكمبو المشكله والصمون الحار. لحوم حلال الجاليه العربيه والاسلاميه الملحمه باداره قصاب الجاليه المعروف سلوان جربوع. زوروهم على 24065 اورشد لك في مدينه فارمington هيلز، او اتصلوا بهم على 248-476-0300. اسواق زمزم للمذاق عنوان لجميع طلباتكم، اتصلوا على 248-476-0300. اسواق زمزم للمعامله الراقية وكرم الضيافة عنوان.
آمتي ترافل، هناك من يقدم الخدمة وهناك من يصنعها. آمتي ترافل وكيل معتمد للحج والعمرة، عضو منظمة آياتا، رواد في الحج والعمرة. آمتي ترافل تذاكر سفر، برامج عمرة طوال العام، ورحلات حول العالم. آمتي ترافل تعلن عن فتح باب الحجز لأداء فريضة الحج لهذا العام. بادروا بحجز أماكنكم من الآن. أسعارنا متميزة وخدماتنا ممتازة. آمتي ترافل، إدارة نبيل الباشا.
لمزيد من المعلومات اتصلوا على 586-578-9126 586-578-9126 أو زورونا على 28695 راين رود في مدينة وورن. أماتي ترافل، للثقة عنوان.
قشات ميديترينيان ماركت بإدارة سهر قشات وأولاده يرحبون بالجالية العربية والكلدانية. جميع أنواع المواد الغذائية، البان طازجة، الكرزات والبهارات الطازجة. داخل الأسواق مطعم ميديترينيان شيش كباب يقدم يوميا جميع أنواع الكباب، المقبلات العربية العراقية وصواني الكامبو المميزة. تفتح الأسواق من 8 إلى 9 مساء من الاثنين وحتى السبت، ومن 8 صباحا إلى 9 مساء يوم الأحد. تقع الأسواق على 32839 نورث ويسترن هايواي في مدينة فارمington هيلز. لحوم حلال للجالية الإسلامية، لطلباتكم من المطعم كول 248-538-7855. That is 248-538-7855. قشة ميديترينيان ماركت، خدمة متميزة ومعاملة راقية.
بدأناه معكم وعهدناكم على أن نستمر بمزيد من المتعة والعروض الحصرية على قناتي زي ألوان وزي أفلام. زي ألوان هي أول وأكبر قناة مسلسلات عربية هندية في أمريكا. أضخم الإنتاجات، مسلسلات حصرية، ومع زي أفلام فأنتم على موعد مع مغامرة جديدة كل يوم لاكتشاف سحر بوليوود. تابعوا حصريا قناتي زي ألوان وزي أفلام الآن في أمريكا على ديش نتورك وسلينج تي في.
I am Atef Abdel Jawad. Join me the first Friday of each month at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. I will be discussing some of the most important issues and events in the Middle East live on America's Voice of the Arabs. WNZK 690 AM and WDMV 700 AM.
Welcome back to our discussion with our distinguished guest, Virginia Senator Richard Black. Senator Black, we have a call from one of our listeners, Jerry. Go ahead, Jerry.
Thank you, Dr. Abdel Jawad. Thank you for taking my call, and good morning to you, and good morning, Senator Black from Virginia.
Good morning, Jerry.
Senator, thank you for your service, and happy birthday to our great country, America. My question here on Senator Black, 3 decades ago, we used to have a common enemy. They call it the Soviet Union, and the Red Army is not there anymore. But right now, Senator Black, we are facing a worse enemy, which is the Yellow Army. Yellow Army, you know who I prefer? I prefer the threat of North Korea. Now, North Korea, I don't think it happened by coincidence. It's been backed and support by invisible power, which is China. Don't you think, Senator, right now is the time for us to build a better NATO? Even Soviet Union threat is gone, but right now, Senator, North Korea, and backed by China. China doesn't show it. Don't you think this is the threat that we are facing? So I will hear your comment. Thank you for taking my call, and God bless you.
Well, thank you very much. North Korea is a unique situation where I certainly support the administration in whatever measures it can take to control the development of nuclear weapons there. I think it is not a responsible nation, and they seem to sort of operate on a principle of blackmail more than anything. I know that we have put a lot of pressure on China, hoping that China will rein in the North Koreans. China is somewhat fearful that if North Korea collapses, that there'll suddenly be a tremendous influx of immigrants from North Korea into China. And so they have some domestic concerns. I'm sure that they are not, I don't think that the Chinese are enthusiastic about what the North Koreans are doing. It is an irritant to them. It's a headache for them, and it's a headache for everyone. The only thing that really gives North Korea the leverage to be able to get away with what they've been doing is that at the end of the Korean War, the 38th parallel, where the truce was, meant that the capital of South Korea, Seoul, is right over the border from North Korea, and North Korea has dug into the mountains massive amounts of artillery and potentially even nuclear artillery. And so any outbreak of conflict there is very threatening to South Korea. Now, South Korea's military is vastly more powerful than North Korea's, but unfortunately their capital city is right under the guns of North Korea. So it has created this very awkward standoff. You know, what the solution is, I think people have struggled with it for generations. But I do think that it's important for us to work with the Chinese and encourage them to put greater pressure on North Korea to stop the aggressive actions that they have taken. And
Senator Black,
yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but we have 2 minutes left, and I would like you to give us in concrete steps, 1, 2, 3 steps, how you think the Syria crisis can be resolved.
Yes, I think it can be resolved rather easily. I think, first of all, we need to respect the territorial integrity of Syria. I think if the United States will stop providing arms and stop training jihadists to move across the border, we're training people from all over the world, and then we're complaining that those same people that we train and give military training to, they go back to Brussels and Paris and they set off bombs and things. Well, it is the United States that is training them in this type of warfare, and then we send them into Syria where they get military experience. The United States is funding the war in Syria. We need to stop it. We need to end the arming of terrorist groups there, and we need to let the Syrians resolve the issue. I think in very short order, President Assad has set up a reconciliation department where they make local truces and they basically give people back all of their rights if they'll simply end the conflict. I have never understood it. It's not my way of fighting a war, but I think they're very intent on binding together the nation. One good sign is that I think already refugees are beginning to flow back into Syria. And I think if we will simply leave them alone and stop doing the work of other nations, stop doing the bidding of other nations to topple Syria, I think people will return and that peace will return to Syria. I think that is the solution.
Senator Black, Senator Richard Hayden Black of Virginia, thank you very much for your time and your insight. And I will see you again the first Friday next month. Good morning.
Okay, we've enjoyed it very much.